Hey everybody, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
Welcome to the podcast for Curiosity Continuum.
Curiosity Continuum is an industry-innovating, non-traditional company passionate about growing wisdom in the next generation.
We are the essential bridge between the analog and digital worlds by building collaborative communities that unleash the power of adaptive expertise and innovation needed to thrive in the 21st century.
We combine and mix essential elements needed to empower people to succeed in new ways, not possible outside of a creative, thoughtful, diverse community of fellow curious people.
Follow us on your favorite podcast app to receive notifications of new content. If you like what you hear and want to dive deeper, visit us at curiositycontinuum.com. Thanks for tuning in. Let's start the conversation. So I love streaming. I really do. And I love free streaming even better when there's like minimal like TV breaks and things.
Yeah.
Even better.
My wife and I were just talking about this tonight, believe it or not, because she's kind of become addicted to Freevee.
Oh, okay.
And the breaks are not egregious. The ads are not egregious. They don't overstay their welcome.
Now, mine that I've been really loving is Roku.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Roku
That's a good one, too.
Right?
Yep.
I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all this cool stuff here.
Right.
The thing that I've been watching, people are going to, you can laugh at me all you want, folks, okay? Transformers, like the OG Transformers that were in the 80s.
The Gen 1 cartoon from
Generation
the 80s.
1, right?
Yep.
Now, I have to explain this because some people are like, well, yeah, of course, the Transformers. In my childhood, I never saw all the episodes because
I don't think I did either. We just watched what was on TV.
That's right. So you couldn't necessarily catch the arc unless you were like hardcore dedicated.
And how did you know which one was first? It never said this was episode 1, season 1, unless you looked in a TV guide. You might have had to
something.
Yeah.
I always remember the little like R in parentheses that told you it was a rerun, but you were hoping that over the summer or the winter when they were doing the reruns that you could catch the one that you missed because you had some other function, right? Here's the little thing about Transformers, folks. If you don't know, they are robots from outer space that take different forms. There are good guys, Autobots, and bad guys, Decepticons, and this is about the battle that they fight. That's kind of like the long and the short of it, right? You may have heard the names Optimus Prime or Bumblebee or Megatron. These are all Transformers in that universe. This was a show that was actually designed to sell toys, like many of the cartoons in the 80s.
G.I. Joe, Thundercats, He-Man, Transformers. Yeah, they were like 20-minute ads.
And they were very good.
I'm telling you,
I say very good. Yeah. Now, here's the deal. I go back and I can look at those. I'm like, man, this is really corny supreme.
And Thundercats is extremely corny.
I'm telling you, though, like, but that kind of, well, I tried to watch Thundercats, but I probably was a little bit too old to get into Thundercats now. I'll just tell you. I like the logo, though. I think it's really fun. Different story. For me, the Transformers has hung with me throughout my life. I've just enjoyed it. Like, I think I like the thing that this becomes a car, this becomes a robot, this becomes a train. And I had these toys. These were toys that were near and dear to me, so they hold a special place in my heart. Now, with Roku, they have all the, I think, the Transformers shows and iterations throughout time, but I was most interested in the first one. So part of the thing that confused me growing up was what happened to all the Transformers that I knew, because Transformers the movie, which came out in theaters, was pivotal to what happened in season 3. And what happened in season 4 was all the driving action.
And a little history. Go ahead. You keep telling it.
I was going to say, yeah. I never saw the movie in theaters, but all of a sudden, like I'm watching Saturday cartoons, I'm like, what happened? I had no idea what happened. So
I was blessed to go see the movie in the theater because my friend Jason Sorley, who I've talked about a few times, he was a missionary. His parents were a missionary to Japan. He happened to be in the United States at that time. They took me because Jason had all the Transformers. He got them in Japan. And so they were all like the metal ones, all super cool. He had like a whole display of them.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I want to see this man's toy collection now, Josh. I'm just telling you right now.
And honestly, he moved to Japan and he just came back not that many years ago. I saw him. I found him on LinkedIn.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Maybe a guest appearance somewhere.
Yeah, that would be interesting to talk to him again.
Might just be I'll just sit there quietly and drink tea while you guys talk, and it'll be.
I think it would be awkward because, to be honest, like, here's the thing, like, about that, like, he left, he was 11. I was like 5.
Okay.
So like
Might
what I
still be a good
remember of him
conversation.
probably isn't really the reality. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
We'll fold it back into Transformers here, folks. I remember watching season 3, trying to figure out what was going on. And then I just didn't watch anymore, just because I think, I don't know if I moved on. I think part of it for me, it was really hard to keep my interest because I'm like, what's going on? Right? I was spent more time trying to
Right.
figure out things than I was just enjoying the show. Now, let's fast forward a little bit because I still kept the good feelings about that, right? I remember like as Michael Bay, when he first came out with like the live action Transformers and watching it, like I enjoyed watching part of my childhood kind of take shape on the big screen where there's like, real vehicles and things like that. This episode, at the time we recorded, we maybe not have decided on a name. But here's where I want to talk about filling in gaps of information, maybe from your childhood or somewhere else. There are things now that you can go back to, and it brings understanding. So I'm going to make it very like philosophical for just a minute, right? The first time I saw Transformers the movie, the animated thing, because it wasn't always available on streaming, I found a copy, right, like a DVD.
Right.
That I want to buy this thing because I want to understand what happened. This was years ago now. I put that sucker in, and it was like my brain all of a sudden went, oh my gosh, now I understand how we got from here to here. It was this big epiphany for me. I'm like, this makes so much more sense. It also made me understand why choices were made in other iterations that I saw. I'm like, well, they must be just exploring this universe. Now, there were comic books and everything, too. I never got into the comic books of that.
Yeah, I never got into the expanded universe stuff.
But in this, I'm like, okay, now I understand why these choices came in. They made sense to me because before they didn't. Just now, let's fast forward again. And I'm like, boy, I wish I could see the entire series, right? I have found season 1, season 2. Isaac had season 3 and 4, I think, on DVD. He had definitely had this chunk of season 4. For those of you who don't know, season 4 was a weird season because there are only 3 episodes in that before it got canceled in the U.S. I think it was like 1987 or something like that, where they just
that's
said,
about
no,
right.
we're not going to do it anymore. Now, in Japan, it continued, so there was still arc and everything. When I went back in my adult life, I made it my goal. I'm going to watch this thing from beginning to end to understand the continuity. I can understand now why I was confused in season 3 because there were some really random episodes in that, which I didn't quite get. I think they were kind of just exploring the world because they're like, oh, let's keep this thing going. We're going to make a season 3. You're going to sell more toys. It was like, oh, okay.
Right.
I think they had to make up reasons as to why they're going to make the show. Even with all that randomness, being able to watch it now, I'm going like, that makes sense. This makes sense. And sometimes the reference only appeared in little moments of time. Why do I say all this? Folks are going, Brian's just talking about Transformers. Here's why. What gaps in your knowledge would benefit from you just revisiting something to gain understanding? You can never go back. You can never go back and re-experience it the way you did. But I'll tell you what, from this is a very simple, innocent type of thing as far as a 80s cartoon. But it made me go, oh, that explains this. And it's maybe because, as Josh and I have talked about, we believe in going to see a mental health care professional when you need it, just like a physical doctor to go and talk about things. There are things that sometimes you have no idea why they are the way they are. You just know that it was. And, having enough curiosity to go, I wonder what that was like. Or I wonder what actually was in between here that I'm missing. See, to me, watching that show and finishing it out from beginning to end gave me continuity to something. Because I think sometimes you look back and you go, why did I act that way? Or why did I think this? Or why was my reaction this way? Why did I feel that way?
Right.
I know I got from this point to here, but there's something I'm missing in the middle or I haven't seen or perceived yet. And to me, it represented that journey just to be curious, but then also invest the time to figure it out. This was a late night episode for me in terms of, people have gone to bed. I'm going to watch a 22-minute episode and enjoy it. What kinds of things do you think, like for yourself, Josh, like you learned in your adult life when you put that piece together, like, oh, now I understand that part. It almost like brings clarity to yourself.
There's so many things that has happened to me with. I've had those moments of epiphany and I realized then, it's like clicking into place, A lot of it, honestly, is like understanding things that happened to me, right? Or something that like my parents did. I just got to like the magical place in my life where I'm like, oh, I totally got that. Or I was watching a show and like a very similar thing happened there. And I'm like, and then once I start thinking about it, I'm like, oh, that must be it. So I think that if we think of it like that, that it really does, it does, it's interesting how your brain works because you're always trying to solve a problem. Like you were trying to solve the problem of you didn't understand what happened in Transformers. Now, the only way you can solve that, literally solve that problem, is watch Transformers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But problems your brain is always trying to solve. And I've noticed this in life. If you have a problem and you're working on it and you're just butting your head up against the wall, stop, go to bed, or go do something else, talk to a friend, just do something. Come back, and usually the solution is quite easily presented to you. Or you go to bed, you sleep on it, really, is what that term is, because it does work. Your brain solves problems at night, and it solves things that are impeding. And your brain might actually know the answer, but your conscious mind doesn't. And so it's pulling those moments of epiphany. I always feel like that's my subconscious and my conscious mind actually connecting together. Like when I think of like deja vu, that's what I think that is. I don't think it's really I experienced this before, but it's like the feeling I have because now I have like the omnipresent view of it. I'm seeing the beginning and the end, and I understand it all, even if it's only for a few seconds. But it's enough to kind of like get me past it.
I'm going to restate a little bit with a little spin about what you just said. Epiphany is when your conscious mind and your subconscious mind connect.
Yeah.
I could say kiss and make it sound more romantic and stuff like that, but that's a great way of describing it. There are things that you don't even know drive you, that all of a sudden something emerges and you allow that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as human beings, we are looking for the reasons as to why things connect. Some things don't, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In some way, shape, but we're looking for continuity of some kind, right? Like you're looking for a pattern.
You can always see that. Like you see that in people looking at clouds. They see shapes. I see it all the time. And I'm like, that really does look like that, but it's not, you know, but because or you see a tree and it looks like a face or something, or a shadow that looks like a person, freaks you out. You know, you're at night in home by yourself and all of a sudden you think you saw somebody. You didn't. It's just your brain is like recognizing patterns, and humans recognize patterns. And part of that is, I think, that whole idea, that thing, like the drive to like fill in missing gaps.
What happens in your life if you don't fill in a gap, Josh?
I obsess about it. Obsess about it. I mean, that is, obsess about it almost into a really unhealthy place. Like I'll have sometimes where it depends what it is, but sometimes I will literally have like almost like panic attacks thinking about stuff. And I'm like, I should just do it, or take care of that thing and just get it done. But then there's sometimes it's something that you can't really do, or you shouldn't do, or something. I'm not saying like something illegal, but like not, just like it's not appropriate to go do like go smack your coworker in the face or something, or like tell them they're an idiot when they are an idiot. So how do you get over that? That kind of feeling. But more of this, I think, is what you're saying is like, if you don't totally understand something or something doesn't present itself, how do you get past it, right? And for me, that's really usually talking it out or letting it go. And there are things in life, like you said, sometimes things are just what they are. And I think that if you can get to a healthy place where you can let certain things go, it feels a lot better. Like we have this term in gaming, our backlog, right? Which is like games that you want to play, but you don't really have time for, or you bought them and you're just kind of like sitting in a shelf. Like I have many of those games. And there's digital hoarding that way too, because you can buy them digitally and they just sit there forever and you never get to play them, or, oh, I'm going to play that game today. I have talked to so many people that are like burned out gamers because of their adult lives and they can't game or they don't want to play games anymore. And they're obsessing about their backlog. And I told them at some point you have to understand your backlog is a collection. You may never play it. And if you can just like let some of it go, you're way better off. It really is a mental exercise to do that. So that's I think important too. kind of got away from the Transformers, but it started
Well,
in a good place.
To me, that it was never an episode about the Transformers. It was
I know.
about what it represented.
Right.
It transformed into this conversation.
This is the way this episode. I want to title it More Than Meets the Eye.
Ooh, I see what you did there. Coming in with it.
And that's something you would
name it.
only get if you watch the cartoon. Because they only say it in the movie one time.
That's true. They do.
The first movie.
Yes, that's right.
And at the very end. So you have to get through that slog to get to that end part.
Where are you folks? Where do you want to? What do you need to go back and explore? What do you have the option to? What don't you? Anything drive your curiosity? Good questions.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good place to put a comma and just leave it, huh, Brian?
Until next time, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
For Curiosity Continuum.